Hey Grand Adventurers, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Mark Guido, and we're spending this week in that portion of southeastern Connecticut and adjacent western Rhode Island where I grew up. We're back for the first time in a good long time, and we're sharing some of our favorite haunts, both past and present. So stay tuned. A full 60% of Connecticut's tourism is located in the southeastern corner of the state, and the best known destination here is the village of Mystic. Mystic was a significant Connecticut seaport with more than 600 ships built over 135 years, starting in 1784. Today, it's home to Mystic Seaport, the largest maritime museum in the United States, which we'll visit later in this episode, as well as Mystic Aquarium and Institute for Exploration, known for its research department, concerned with marine life rehabilitation, and its popular beluga whales. The village is located on the Mystic River, which flows into Fisher's Island Sound, and the Mystic River Bascule Bridge crosses the river in the center of the village, with many shops and restaurants lining the river on either side. The name Mystic is derived from the native Pequot term Missituck, describing a large river whose waters are driven into waves by tides or wind. Pequot control of the Mystic area ended after the Pequot War, and English settlements increased. By the 1640s, Connecticut Colony began to grant land to the Pequot War veterans. Visitors may be surprised to learn that there is no actual town of Mystic. Instead, the village is located half in Groton and half in the town of Stonington, separated by the river. Settlers arrived in the Stonington area in the mid-1600s, and the village of Stonington is located just a few miles east of Mystic along the shoreline of Fisher's Island Sound. In recent decades, Stonington has experienced a large influx of new homeowners using historic Stonington Borough houses as second homes. The town has undergone a widespread reconditioning of these homes since the mid-1990s. Many of the homes here were built by ship captains, complete with a widow's walk atop the home to spot ships coming into the harbor. The Stonington Harbor Light was erected in 1840. In 1925, it became the flagship museum of the Stonington Historical Society, making it the oldest lighthouse museum in America. The light was taken out of service in 1889. During the 19th century, Stonington supported a small fishing, whaling, and sealing fleet that carried out trade with the West Indies, with enough volume for it to be made a port of entry in 1842. This saw a huge explosion in Portuguese immigration to the village from the Azores via whaling vessels. Today, Stonington is home to the last commercial fishing fleet in Connecticut. That's Fisher's Island, New York, which ironically is much closer to Connecticut and Rhode Island than it is to any other point in New York State. We earlier promised to include a little bit of Western Rhode Island in this episode. Looking out across Little Narragansett Bay from Stonington Point, that's Watch Hill, Rhode Island in the distance. Watch Hill is where I used to spend summer days on the beach at Napattree Point while growing up. The ruins of Fort Mansfield, an old coastal artillery post constructed to guard the eastern entrance to Long Island Sound, lie at the end of Napattree Point. It was in operation between 1901 and 1909, but 2 concrete gun emplacements remain there today after the 3rd gun battery succumbed to beach erosion. As kids, we explored the dark underground tunnels beneath the fort's concrete batteries, but we hear that the stairways into the lower levels are now blocked by steel plates. Napattree Point was once heavily wooded. However, most of the trees were destroyed when the Great September Gale of 1815 struck the area. Fort Road connected Watch Hill to Fort Mansfield, but the hurricane of 1938 wiped it out and destroyed 39 houses on Napattree Point, in addition to the yacht and beach clubs and a bathing pavilion. 15 people were killed, and others survived by clinging to wreckage as they were swept across the bay to Connecticut. Napattree remains uninhabited to this day. The waterfront of Watch Hill was once lined with huge Victorian hotels. However, fire and hurricanes destroyed almost all during the 20th century. The Olympia Tea Room along Watch Hill's waterfront dates to 1916. Colonists used the hill here as an important lookout point during the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War, hence the community's name. It sits at the most southwestern point in Rhode Island. It came to prominence in the late 19th and early 20th century as an exclusive summer resort, with wealthy families building sprawling Victorian-style cottages along the peninsula. Even today, it's a quiet haven for the rich and famous without the glitz and glamour of nearby Newport. Taylor Swift and Conan O'Brien have homes here. The Flying Horse Carousel, the oldest operating suspended horse carousel in the United States and a National Historic Landmark, was built around 1876. The horses, which still have their original agate eyes, are suspended by chains from sweeps radiating out from the center of the carousel under its canopy. The carousel was originally part of a traveling carnival until 1879, when the carnival was forced to abandon it in Watch Hill. It was powered by a horse at that time, with music provided by a hand-cranked organ. Power was provided by water in 1897, and the carousel was electrified about 1914. It was extensively damaged by the hurricane of '38, but its horses were recovered from the sand dunes, and the carousel was restored to operation. The stately Ocean House was originally opened in 1868. It was torn down in 2005, then completely rebuilt and reopened in 2010. The Watch Hill Lighthouse has served as a nautical beacon for ships since 1745, when the Rhode Island colonial government erected a watchtower and beacon during the French and Indian War and Revolutionary War. The original structure was destroyed in a 1781 storm, and construction on its replacement was completed in 1807. The current lighthouse opened in 1856, standing 45 feet tall. It was automated in 1986. As a teenager, I worked at the Cove Fish Market in Mystic, the best damn seafood shack around. We'd buy flounder straight off the boats in Stonington and fillet it in the fish market in the morning, then fry it up and serve it in the window service restaurant in the afternoon. Diners sat outside on picnic tables and brought their own BYOB wine, beer, and cocktails. Alas, the Cove is no more, and the next best thing is Costello's Clam Shack in Noang, just outside of Mystic, which is also BYOB. That big boy's a 2.5 pounder. When we come right back, following a quick ad break, we'll share where we're camping for the week, take a peek at where I grew up in Norwich, explore New London and Groton, go down below aboard the nation's first nuclear-powered submarine, and much more. So stay tuned. Before we share with you where we're spending camping this week, we owe you a little explanation as to how we got here. We had made reservations at Rocky Neck State Park, down along the Long Island Sound coastline, down in East Lyme, Connecticut, right when the reservation window opened at the end of February. We had a full 8 nights reserved in a beautiful dry campsite down at Rocky Neck State Park. What I failed to notice, and what I found when we went to go check in there on Sunday night, is Connecticut state parks do not allow dogs in the campground or anywhere in any state park for that matter. It wasn't incredibly obvious during the booking process, and of course I can't replicate the booking process now to be able to see what kind of information was there to alert me to the fact that they prohibit dogs. However, if I look at my reservation details in the important information supplied by Reserve America, there is no mention whatsoever of the dog prohibition. Also, if you pull up Connecticut State Park campground rules in Reserve America, there is no mention therein about a dog prohibition. It only shows up in a separate article in a separate category in the FAQ on Connecticut State Parks. So I was a little frustrated and a little perturbed, especially given the fact that our reservation included the Labor Day holiday weekend. It's hard enough to find an open campsite for an 8-day stretch anywhere in the Northeast at any time of year, much less over the course of a holiday weekend. But we had to do something promptly to be able to find another spot. In the meantime, I tried to get a refund from Connecticut State Parks. Spoke with the parks campground employee at the campground office, and they told me that all refunds and all financial transactions are handled through Reserve America. There's nothing the campground could do for me, that I should contact Reserve America. I tried calling Reserve America, and on Sunday afternoon, their phone number shut down operations for the day at noon. Of course, we were checking in at the check-in time at 1 o'clock, so I had to wait until Monday morning. I then called Reserve America, and she told me that because it was after the check-in time that I could not process a refund request. Needless to say, I was a little frustrated over that too, because there's no way to request a refund through Reserve America at the time of check-in. I subsequently got bounced back and forth. I went a couple levels up at Reserve America. Nobody there was willing to issue a refund. They kept referring me to the campground, which had already referred me to Camp America. I did speak with the campground supervisor at Rocky Neck. To be honest with you, a very kind and very empathetic gentleman. However, he basically told me I have a chance of somewhere between slim and none of getting a refund, and only if I issue a written request that he had to escalate to Hartford. So, boo on Connecticut State Parks, not only for their no dogs in campground policies. I mean, let's face it, campgrounds and dogs go together like marshmallows and campfires. They're just part of the camping process for an estimated 2/3 of RV campers who travel with pets, according to the RV Industries of America. But instead, we thank Mohegan Sun Casino in Norwich for saving our bacon. They have a free parking lot for RV parking, and they're letting us stay here the entire week. So thank you very much, Mohegan Sun. Lot docking here is safe and secure. Tribal Security keeps a detailed record of each camper, and security personnel and the tribal police make regular passes through the parking lot. Under the circumstances, we truly lucked out. Mohegan Sun is owned and operated by the Mohegan tribe on 240 acres of their reservation along the banks of the Thames River in Uncasville, part of the town of Montville. The land here along Trading Cove and the Thames River, formerly used by United Nuclear Corporation building nuclear reactors for submarines, was decommissioned and cleaned up. The casino and resort first opened on October 12, 1996. And Mohegan Sun's 1,200-room luxury Sky Tower was unveiled in April 2002. The parking lot is anything but level, but we managed to get level with our driver's side wheels a few inches off the ground. The casino property features the 12,000-seat Mohegan Sun Arena, home of the WNBA's Connecticut Sun. It houses a 350-seat cabaret theater, the 300-seat Wolf Den, and 100,000 square feet of meeting and function room space, including the Northeast's largest ballroom, and 130,000 square feet of retail shopping. At the end of the 2018 fiscal year, Mohegan Sun's net revenue was $1.07 billion. Mohegan Sun Casino is located right on the town line with Norwich, the town founded in 1659, where I grew up in this house. Norwich is perhaps best known as the birthplace of the notorious Revolutionary War trader Benedict Arnold. The town boomed in the late 19th century with large mills supporting textile, armaments, and specialty item manufacturing, like the thermos bottles that my father researched, designed, and tested right in this factory. But with the closure of the mills beginning in the middle of the 20th century, the town's fortunes took a noticeable downturn, as they did in many former mill towns across southern New England. That downturn is most noticeable in the core downtown portion of Norwich, which was rather decrepit even when I was growing up. It's filled with vacant storefronts instead of foot traffic. My elementary and junior high years were spent here at St. Patrick's Cathedral School, adjacent to the diocesan cathedral next door. A granite behemoth first opened in 1879. I think that our student desks in the school, complete with inkwells, must have dated to the same year. My high school years were at St. Bernard, located in Uncasville, just down the road from Mohegan Sun Casino. This is the first time I've been inside the school since graduating in 1984. Seriously, nothing has changed. Norwich sits at the head of the Thames River, whereas the towns of New London and Groton line either side of the river's mouth. Although it's named after the River Thames in London, here it's called Thames. Both New London and Groton prospered thanks to the harbor here, considered to be the best deep-water harbor on Long Island Sound. And consequently, New London became a base of American naval operations during the American Revolutionary War. New London was one of the world's 3 busiest whaling ports for several decades beginning in the early 19th century, along with Nantucket and New Bedford, Massachusetts. Back in the early 80s, New London was a hotspot of the punk and alternative music scene. Back then, the drinking age was only 18, but we were still underage. So we'd sneak into the L&G Club, off Bank Street downtown, to see bands like the Reducers. It was an old man's bar until 9 p.m., then a music club after 9. There was a bouncer stationed at the door beginning at 9 o'clock, but if you just walked in before 9, you were golden. Fort Trumbull is a massive granite fort near the mouth of the Thames River in New London, originally built in 1777 and named for Governor Jonathan Trumbull. The present fortification was built between 1839 and 1852. Fort Trumbull lies adjacent to the Coast Guard Station, New London, home port to the U.S. Coast Guard Bark Eagle that we toured with you earlier this summer in Halifax, Nova Scotia. If you'd like to see the Eagle up close, we'll put a link to our South Shore, Nova Scotia episode right here on the screen. New London Harbor Light guards the west side of the New London Harbor entrance. It's the nation's 5th oldest light station and the 7th oldest U.S. lighthouse. It's both the oldest and the tallest lighthouse on Long Island Sound, with its tower reaching 90 feet. A light was first lit here in 1760, and the current tower was put in its place in 1801. New London Ledge Lighthouse sits in the middle of the Thames River at the mouth of New London Harbor. It was built in 1909. Naval Submarine Base New London, the primary United States Navy East Coast submarine base, lying 687 acres along the Groton side of the Thames River. It is home port to 16 attack submarines. The base is also neighbor to the submarine construction yard of General Dynamics Electric Boat Division in Groton, which has been the Navy's primary submarine manufacturing facility since 1931, including the Virginia-class attack submarines being built here today. The United States Navy Submarine Force Library and Museum is located adjacent to the submarine base in Groton. It is the only submarine museum managed exclusively by the Naval History and Heritage Command Division of the Navy, and this makes it a repository for many special submarine items of national significance, including USS Nautilus, the first nuclear-powered submarine, built right at Electric Boat in Groton. Visitors may take a 30-minute self-guided audio tour of the Nautilus, which was first launched in 1955 and decommissioned in 1980. It traveled under the polar ice cap and reached the North Pole during the Cold War. Also at the museum is a replica of David Bushnell's Turtle, built in 1775, and the first submarine used in combat. When we come right back, following another quick ad break to pay the bills, we'll head to Mystic Seaport Museum, the largest maritime museum in the United States. So stay tuned. Founded in 1929, Mystic Seaport is the nation's leading maritime museum and one of the premier maritime museums in the world. It is the home of 4 National Historic Landmark vessels, including the 1841 whale ship Charles W. Morgan, the oldest merchant vessel in the country. The museum's collections and exhibits include over 500 historic watercraft, a major research library, a large gallery of maritime art, a unique diorama displaying the town of Mystic as it was in the 19th century, a working ship restoration shipyard, a planetarium, and a recreation of a 19th century seafaring village. More than 60 historic buildings, most of them rare commercial structures, have been moved to the 19-acre site and meticulously restored. The 19th century seafaring village contains nearly all the types of general and specialized trades associated with building and operating a sailing fleet. They include a chandlery, sail loft, rope walk, cooperage, shipping agent's office, printing office, bank, and others. Each building is used to show the original activity and also to display examples of what was sold or constructed. The nautical instrument shop, for example, displays sextants, nautical timepieces, and so forth, while demonstrations at the cooperage show how casks were assembled. Acquired by the museum in 1941, the Charles W. Morgan is the world's last surviving wooden whaling ship from 2,700 ships that once operated in the United States whaling fleet. She was first launched from a shipyard in New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1841, making the Morgan second only to USS Constitution as the oldest seaworthy vessel in the world. On the Morgan's deck are huge tripods used to render blubber into whale oil, which was commonly used in lamps. The ship's first worldwide voyage of 3 years and 3 months resulted in 59 whales being processed, for 1,600 barrels of sperm oil, 800 barrels of right whale oil, and 5 tons of whalebone. The Morgan remained in active service hunting whales for 80 years. After a whale was harpooned, the harpoon's rope would be tied to small whaleboats like this one to follow the whale until it died. Sailors called this harrowing ride as the whale tried to flee a Nantucket sleigh ride. Joseph Conrad is an iron-hulled and fully rigged sailing ship which was used to train sailors in Denmark. She sailed around the world as a private yacht in 1934, then served as a training ship in the United States. Although she no longer goes to sea, she still fulfills her original purpose as a training ship for Mystic Mariner program in the museum's educational programs. First launched in 1908, Sabino is a small wooden coal-fired steamboat and is one of only 2 surviving members of the United States Mosquito Fleet. She is America's oldest regularly operating coal-powered steamboat. Do you remember seeing the real Aphrodite docked in Watch Hill earlier in this episode? I've learned here that she's a 1937 Purdy commuter yacht. This giant diorama of Mystic as it would have appeared in 1870, complete down to the outhouse that was located behind every residence, fills an entire building. The Preservation Shipyard is an important part of the museum, where traditional tools and techniques are used to preserve the museum's seemingly limitless collection of historic vessels. Their restoration work makes the $31 adult admission a true pleasure to pay. The museum is so large it's difficult to see everything in one day, so your admission receipt allows readmission for a second day within 1 week of purchase. We sincerely hope that you've enjoyed visiting southeastern Connecticut with us. Now, coming up next week, we're going to be going way around New York City, heading for Cape May and Wildwood, New Jersey. So if you're not yet a Grand Adventurer, there is no better time than right now for you to go smash that little subscribe button right down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And ring that notification bell to be sure that you never miss an episode of Grand Adventure, which we premiere right here every Wednesday evening. We'd be honored if you share the channel with your friends, family, and on social media. Understand that it is extremely important to us that if you liked this episode, please be sure to give us a big thumbs up down below. And while you're down below, that's where you'll find the comment section, where we always love to hear from you each and every week. So until next Wednesday, from Cape May and Wildwood, New Jersey, please remember, life is nothing but a grand adventure. We'll see you then.